I'm Will Byron, founder over at Salesman.org, where we make selling simple. And in this video, I want to share a few updates on what we've got coming for you in 2022 and beyond. This is some exciting stuff. I've split the video into 4 different segments. What we failed on last year, what we're doing differently this year, why we're doing all of this, and of course, most importantly, what's in it for you. So let's get into each of these sections. So first off, what did we fail on last year? First up, well, this is an easy one for me to share with you. It was consistency. The biggest issue I had last year was just consistently publishing high quality content. Now, don't get me wrong, we published an absolute crap ton of podcasts, Selling Made Simple episodes, This Week in Sales, the Social Selling Show with Daniel Disney, and tons more content as well. But I don't feel like we were as consistent as what I wanted to be, what I set out to be. Why did this happen? Well, there are 2 reasons. On a personal level, well, last January, we brought home Walter, the golden retriever, and I'd read books, I chatted with dog trainers, and I thought I was prepared for giving him a great puppy start to life with training, his environment, and just tons of attention and love from me. But this is all way more time consuming than I'd originally anticipated. So when Walter came along in January, my production workflow got massively derailed, primarily because I had to spend a lot more time at home rather than at the office. But 1 year later, he's now an epic doggo. He doesn't require as much one-on-one time from me during the day. Obviously, I walk him in the evenings and afternoons. I play with him at lunch and all that good stuff. But during the day, I can get my head down and get work done. And so that is now resolved. And the second reason why we were not quite as consistent as what I wanted to be, well, that was pretty much out of my control. That was year 2 of a global pandemic. And there's not much to say here other than, well, obviously, COVID has made everything a bit of a mess, and hopefully we're coming out of the other end of it. Something else that I feel like we got wrong last year was that we had too many experiments. Now, since the very start of launching Salesman.org, I have been aggressively preaching that in-person sales training is a complete waste of time. And pre-COVID, we were very literally the only sales training company on the planet that pushed our online training over in-person events. Now, I literally stopped speaking at companies in person and doing in-person training 5 years ago. I'm fully behind this idea that online sales training is more effective, more cost-effective, and leads to better results than in-person training. And of course, post-COVID, the entire sales training industry has changed its tune. They're on board with what we've been preaching for half a decade now as well. But being first in this space, being first to really invest into online sales training, well, it really helped our Selling Made Simple Academy, I don't know a better way to describe it, but really blow up over the past 3 or 4 years. We've had thousands and thousands of students in there, and that product alone does nearly 10 times more revenue than all of our podcast sponsorships, YouTube deals, all this other revenue combined. And with the success of being first to market and first to really push online training as a product, well, last year I ran a bunch of product and content experiments, hoping to drop onto that next thing that might blow up as well. And honestly, most of these experiments failed, and they took a lot of time and energy away from our core content and our core products. So this year, I'm taking my own advice and I'm making selling simple. We're getting rid of all these experiments. We're narrowing things down, and I'll share more on this in a second. So what are we doing differently this year? First off, we've got an improved studio, production, and team systems. And I've spent a huge part of 2021 rebuilding the studio. I know you can't really see it from this one camera angle, but everything is essentially brand new. We're now capable of creating live content, better podcasts, and more effective training content as well. We've now also got a team of writers on board who are able to take my wishy-washy, crazy thoughts and rewrite them into content that is much more easy to consume and more entertaining as well. And Adam and the whole production team behind all of our video and audio content have stepped up in a big way too. They're helping with much higher end production value, graphics, taking on some new responsibilities, uploading and scheduling content, and taking a lot of work off my plate so I can write and create more in the first instance. Everything has been systematized too. I've spent months. I cannot put this across because this is laborious for me. I've spent so many hours, days, weeks, bordering on months here creating checklists, documenting processes, and it's boring as shit. But now everyone's on board, everyone knows what they're doing, and everything so far is running seamlessly with less effort. We always want to do less, but better when we're making selling simple. And this brings me on to the next point, making selling simple. I like to overcomplicate things. I like to move from one project to another, to another, to another in rapid succession. But this year, I'm simplifying everything. We're going to be publishing 3 episodes of the Salesman podcast and 3 episodes of Selling Made Simple each week. And plus a few little extras like This Week in Sales with Victor Antonio. That's produced live, so it's really easy to put that show together. But that is it. No more faffing around. It's time to get serious about our award-winning content. The Salesman podcast has won awards from Apple and Google at this point. And so I'm really focused on doubling down on what is working. And the third thing, new studio space. Now, I feel like I'm in the film Groundhog Day every time I mention new studio space at the beginning of every year, each time I do one of these type of videos and podcasts. And getting into a new, more appropriate, bigger studio space has been on the to-do list for years. But with COVID and then property prices in the UK shooting up and just going insane over the past 12 months or so, well, I've been procrastinating on making the move, but it has to happen this year. It's got to happen. And I'm saying it here, I'm being as upfront as I can with all this. Moving into new office space is one of my main goals for the business in 2022. And this is going to set us up, not just for years to come, but potentially decades to come. That's how important it is. So why are we doing all of this? Well, first off, I want to take things to the next level. Now, as a business, Salesman.org's revenue has gone up every single year since we started, which is around about 6 years ago now. But this year, I want to stop making these incremental steps that we've been making with our revenue, and I want to start leaping our revenue forward. Our one thing from the book, the one thing that makes everything else either easy or obsolete is more YouTube views. That's the biggest leverage point we've got on our revenue right now. More YouTube views drives more revenue on the YouTube platform itself, more revenue from sponsors anyone who's creating content. We find that a lot of our sponsors at the moment are very, very interested in our YouTube content, even more so than even the podcast content, even though the podcast content gets way more downloads than the YouTube stuff. So that might be something to bear in mind. And of course, more YouTube views is going to lead to more podcast downloads and more product sales as well. So with that said, you're going to see the Salesman.org YouTube channel get more love this year than it ever has done before. We're currently at 52,000 YouTube subscribers, and very likely we're going to be at 100,000 by the end of the year. Next, sales is changing. COVID has accelerated the inevitable change in the sales industry that we predicted 6 years ago. There's tons of blog posts, there's tons of video content that we put out 5-6 years ago predicting all of these changes in the sales training industry. And COVID's coming along like this train. These changes are moving along slow and just smash them all to bits. In a nutshell, these changes mean less order takers and higher paid deal makers in our B2B sales space. Now, more than ever, salespeople have got to improve their game, otherwise they're going to get left behind. And I feel it's our duty over at Salesman.org, the entire team, to help salespeople make more money, to transition during this period of change, and to really win. And with better training content, I think we can help the tens of thousands of salespeople, not just a handful of salespeople anymore, but tens and tens of thousands of salespeople that consume our content every week level up as well. So that was a lot of me ranting and raving about what we're doing internally over at Salesman.org. But what does this mean for you? Well, first off, it means that we're going to start creating content that you want to consume. because I think we went a little bit too far into the technical side of selling over the past few years in the podcast and on the blog and in our YouTube channel as well. I know why this was. This is because I've been building out our formal training curriculum in the Salesman Made Simple Academy. And obviously, if I'm focusing on all these technical elements of sales training, they've undoubtedly going to leak into our other training content and other videos that I'm producing and the podcast that I'm talking on as well. Now, moving forward, you're going to get more entertaining, real, and I mean that, no more bullshitting, real, in-your-face content. Like the videos that I used to put out when I first started Salesman.org, when I first started all of this. Like the one where I'm bashing my friend Grant Cardone. That one has like the hundreds of thousands of views. It's very likely that if you consumed our content or you started consuming our content 3 or 4 years ago, that was the video that got you hooked on everything else that we put out. So this year, I'm going to lean into entertainment, really what works on YouTube as a platform. Next, consistency. You're going to see content delivered on a daily schedule that is set in stone. Come hell or high water, starting next Monday, so a week from now, when the content machine really starts whirling after its Christmas slumber. I'm never going to miss an upload day. You're going to see consistently great content throughout this year. I'm going to be doubling down on what is working in that regard. And finally, even better paid training as well. So whilst I've focused on our free content in this video and the side of the Salesman.org machine that focuses on the free content, the podcast, the YouTube, Instagram, the blog, all that good stuff, we've now got a full team dedicated to our paid training program, the Salesman Made Simple Academy 2. Now, the reason for this is pretty simple. There are just certain things that are very difficult to teach, train, and help retention in a YouTube video, in a audio podcast, and it's difficult to keep students motivated and train them how to crush their sales quotas on these more passive platforms like, again, YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever you consume your audio content from. So over the past few years, we've developed our own what's called a LMS or learning management platform. And we've filled it with countless hours at this point of incredible training content. And there's other software tools as a community in there as well. And at this moment in time, I'm happy to say that, well, most of the software side of things is now complete. And the training in Salesman Made Simple Academy is getting updated constantly too. So this year, on top of everything that we're doing with the free content, we're taking Salesman Made Simple Academy to the next level. And I want you to be part of it as well. So if you want to close more deals in the next 30 days or your money back, head over to salesman.org/simple, get signed up today and join us as we push forward through all of this and do our best to revolutionize sales training, redefine what it means to be working in sales and get rid of some of that ickiness that goes along with it for most people as well. So there we go. I'll shut up now. I'll wrap things up there. That's what we did right. That's what we did wrong. And a bit of a roadmap for where we're going with all of our content, with the YouTube channel, the podcast over the next 12 months as well. I hope you're enjoying the content that we've put out over the past few years, what we've put out so far this year. And I'm excited to show you what we've got coming up. So make sure to click subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next video or podcast.